Bush just released their 10th studio album, I Beat Loneliness, and I have to say, I'm torn on this one. After absolutely loving their last record, The Art of Survival, I was hoping his new album would hit just as hard. But here's the thing, while Bush tackles some really heavy topics like mental health and loneliness, and while there are definitely some standout tracks that'll get stuck in your head, I found myself wanting more from this album overall. So did Bush beat loneliness, or did loneliness beat Bush? Let me first say I have a pretty interesting history with this band. I always thought of this band as a grunge band that came out a little too late. I was a fan when they released their first few albums, such as 16 Stone. I was a big fan of that song Glycerin. I also have the Razor Blade Suitcase on CD, but then I had forgotten about them. Then later, I discovered them a few years ago when they released an album in 2023 called The Art of Survival. But then I realized they had been releasing albums consistently over the years. I was a big fan of their last album. I thought it was really solid, but I had mixed feelings about this one. I Beat Loneliness is the band's 10th studio album, released on July 18th, 2025 through Ear Music. The album was recorded in 2024, and Gavin Rossdale confirmed its completion back in September of 2024. The current lineup of Bush consists of Gavin Rossdale on lead vocals and rhythm and guitar, Chris Traynor on lead guitar, Corey Britz on bass, and Nick Hughes on drums. I'll be honest with you, I didn't realize they were releasing a new album until a few days before it was released, so I hadn't heard any of the singles or anything like that. I thought the album's title, I Beat Loneliness, was kind of strange. But I did some research and I found the album had some common themes, which include emotional vulnerability, mental health challenges, and the silence that often surrounds men's mental health. So I found the concept of the album interesting, as these are topics that I like to read about. Gavin Rossdale said that this was the most personal record he has ever made. He wants the album to help people feel less alone because, and I quote, "Life is beautiful but not easy. So I like that aspect of the album, but here is the problem. The music didn't really blow me away. I thought some of the music sounded like classic Bush, but they also went in some different directions, or at least compared to the albums that I was familiar with. I think one of the big things with this album is that it has a lot of electronic elements, and I was used to them being more of a typical grunge band. But there was also some variety on the album, as some of the songs sounded like classic Bush, while others sounded completely different. I also found in my research they wanted to continue the sound of their past two albums, which were The Art of Survival, which I reviewed a few years ago, and the one before, The Kingdom, which I have listened to before a few times. In other words, they wanted to be a mix of grunge and pop rock with some electronica touches. But again, here's the problem, the album still didn't grab me like the previous one. The album also has a stronger front half with the more energetic tracks, and the second half drags a little bit, especially towards the end. But let me talk about some of the songs now. They released a single back in April, although I don't remember listening to it back then. It was called 60 Ways to Forget People. The song is very emotional, deals with the complexities of heartbreak and the painful process of letting go. It's also track number 6, so they put the single in the middle of the album. It's also a short song that's under 3 minutes. I don't think it's one of the stronger tracks, but it's not too bad. It has that classic Bush sound, but they also incorporate some electronic elements. So it's not the best choice for a lead single, but it was kind of catchy after a few listens. But with that being said, the album has some strong tracks, mostly in the front half of the album. The album opener is called Scars. This was a pretty strong album opener. The song has some electronic elements, but they were paired with some powerful drumming, loud guitars, and Gavin Rossdale gives a pretty solid vocal performance. This one has a very catchy chorus that contrasts with the more laid-back verses. It's also a good headphone song because you can hear these pounding bass beats right in the beginning of the song. So in other words, it's a very good opener. Then there was the next track, I Beat Loneliness, and this one uses a lot of electronic sounds and sounds like something that could be in a Tron movie or something like that, but I know Nine Inch Nails is already doing that. But there are some Middle Eastern vibes here as well. Gavin Rossdale has a very good vocal performance. The chorus is also catchy, and you can hear those loud, grungy guitars in the mix, so it's not all electronic music. Then there's a third track called The Land of Milk and Honey. This is another strong track. It has that thick electronic bass sound and a darker tone. But with that being said, it might be the catchiest song on the album. One of those songs that has a very sing-alongable quality. This was released as the second single, but it probably should have been released as the lead single. It was the better of two tracks that I already spoke about. Then there's a song, We're All on the Same Side, which has more of that classic sound and a very cool, thick bass guitar in the intro. This is another track that's both catchy and memorable. It's also a relatable song because it has that repetitive line, we are all the same inside. So it kind of makes it feel like people are all connected in some way or another. But there was also a song that I thought was a standout, and that was a song, Everyone Is Broken. This one comes in more towards the end of the album. It's one of the songs that's very depressing, but at the same time has lyrics that are very relatable and hit you in the feels. It's more of a laid-back track. It's the kind of song that you can just sit back and listen to, the lyrics. So this was probably the best track on the second half of the album. But with that being said, the album has a few moments where it drags. They had too many slow songs or ballads. The only really good slow song was Everyone Was Broken, but some of the other ones didn't really catch my attention. There was one track called We Are Of This Earth, which was also one of the slower songs. Had a rhythm slightly similar to that classic song Glycerin. It's one of the weaker tracks as it didn't really do much for me. Then there were the last three tracks on the album, which were Don't Be Afraid, Footsteps in the Sand, and Rebel with a Cause, that could be given the filler label. Maybe they could have been cut from the album, but then again, if they were cut, the album would have been very short. It would have been a little over 30 minutes, so they almost needed to be there. In conclusion, I thought the album had many highs and lows. At this point in time, I think the previous album, The Art of Survival, was better, as it was more consistent, but this one might have had some better highs. This can all change after I spend some more time with the album, so the album might be a grower. I probably would have wanted it to have some more rocking songs, but this is also showing the natural progression of the band. So with that being said, I would give this a 7 out of 10 for now. Maybe it will go up by the end of the year when I do my rock album wrap-up. Speaking of The Art of Survival, check out my review of that right here. Thanks for watching. Please give this video a like. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you have not already. I do album reviews, rankings, and classic album reviews and all that good stuff. And if you think I should do a Bush ranking video, comment below. If I get enough interest, I will do a deep dive and do it. So again, see you in the next one.